onto the topic of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Are the Gospels absurd? According to Dan Barker, the Gospels are absurd, and he's going to tell us why that is.
The story of the resurrection of Jesus Christ is the absolute worst example anyone could possibly give for the reliability of the Bible. And I'm not exaggerating. Let me tell you why I'm not exaggerating. Many stories in the Bible are given once or twice. The resurrection story is given 5 times. You can compare them. Was the tomb open or closed when the women arrived? What message did the angels give? How many angels were at the tomb? And so on. Besides that, we see through the development in the first century of the Christian myth that the earliest stories were simple. There were no angels. There were very few remarkable events. But as you go 10, 20, 30 years later, you find more and more until you get to the book of John, where you find these outlandish stories. What you see in the development of the resurrection story in the New Testament is the development of a legend.
Here, Mr. Barker employs the tactic of pretty much ridiculing the resurrection of Jesus. And he bypasses all of the scholarship that affirms the New Testament accounts as valid, authentic, and well-attested historical documents from antiquity. Now here, we heard Dan Barker take the line that the Gospels are contradictory. Bishop Spong of the Jesus Seminar used this argument quite a bit in his debates. The idea that the Gospels have contradictions in the resurrection story, in that the 4 plus accounts of the resurrection, they say there are too many differences to take the account seriously. He said different numbers of women arrived at the tomb. Was it 1 angel or 2 angels who informed the women? What did the angels say? Was the tomb opened or closed when they arrived? These are fair points if you choose to ignore the crucial harmony that is found in the gospel accounts of the resurrection specifically. Now, it's one thing to seek contradictions, and it's another thing to obviously ignore the similarities of the core message. So, where do the accounts of the resurrection in the New Testament agree? So now let's do this. Let's be objective and hold the important similarities found among all the gospel accounts of the resurrection of Jesus up to these few seemingly insignificant differences that Barker has provided. How many women were there? How many angels were there? What did the angels say? On the core message, there's no disagreement. Jesus was arrested, convicted on charges of blasphemy by the Jewish Sanhedrin, found in all the stories. He was mocked, slandered, and delivered to Pontius Pilate and charged with sedition, which is treason in this case, for claiming to be a king. Jesus was crucified by Roman authorities in Jerusalem. He died several hours later. A throng of his followers and deniers watched him die. Jesus' body was collected by Joseph of Arimathea and buried in a tomb on the 6th day of the week. Various women followers, including Mary Magdalene, visited the tomb early on the morning of the 1st day of the week. They found the tomb empty of Jesus. Jesus appeared to his disciples alive. Those disciples became proclaimers of the gospel and this specific event. Consistent. And finally, these disciples were willing to die for something that they saw rather than something they were told or heard. That's consistent. And that point is specific. That point is important specifically because this is where Christianity departs, one of the many areas where Christianity departs from all other religions. These men saw something that they were willing to die for, something that changed their lives. These were Jews. They had to change everything. And for what benefit? Well, the benefit was eternal life. But as far as immediate benefit in the lives that they were leading, no, it was very difficult. Since I've come to Christ, things haven't gotten easier. They've become, I've experienced more resistance than ever before in my life. Now, what about this claim that Jesus' appearance could have been a hallucination or just a spirit, maybe a ghostly apparition? Jesus was reported as alive and in the flesh. Jesus could not have been a hallucination because hallucinations are subjective experiences. Doesn't make sense that it's a hallucination. It's not borne out by the evidence. Jesus was in his body, in the flesh, for all the disciples to see, for Thomas to touch. Can't touch a spirit. If the disciples had seen a spirit or a ghostly apparition, now wouldn't that have been evidence that he was still dead, not alive? They saw the man. The historical account is that the disciples claimed to see Jesus alive and in the flesh. One is welcome to deny this evidence, but you can't call it not evidence. And if you're going to present a few insignificant differences among the accounts, you must also be consistent and consider these many crucial points of conformity.